I'll be honest, the envy started with shots like these. The big guns had arrived in the Caribbean, and as the rain continued to jet wash the UK and Europe, Antigua looked perfect. And of course, it was. In the maxi world, Wendy Schmidt's boating designed 85-footer Deep Blue. Carol Coromek's jet black Wallicento V. Along with Galatea, Chris Flowers' Wallicento. There was the evergreen, ever-competitive 100-footer Leopard. And the Mills 72 Balthazar. For all those that have been missing big boats, bowsprits, bow waves and weather rails stacked with crew, this was a visual feast. But there was more. In IRC 0, Ran, Eno Noir and Dagwet 5. In the Class 40, Scowling Dragon in IRC 1, along with the Swan 58 Wavewalker and the Rykel Pugh 42 Ricky. Right across to one of the smallest boats, Bernie Even Wong's Mum 36 High Tension in IRC 2. All were in town for the Nelson's Cup, a mixture of inshore and coastal races, with a lap of Antigua to round things off. And at the end of the 7-race series, the top trophies went to Leopard for a win in the maxi class. Ran in IRC 0, Ricky in IRC 1 and the J125 Jackknife in IRC 2. But for many of those that took part, the Nelson's Cup was a warm-up for the big one, the annual Royal Ocean Racing Club's Caribbean 600. Now in its 17th edition, the 600-mile race around 11 Caribbean islands is on plenty of bucket lists. With the promise of reliable trade winds of 15 to 25 knots, wall-to-wall sunshine and a course that has more turns than an alpine pass, it's easy to see why. One person who couldn't resist the challenge was Dee Caffari. Well, after all, if you've just spent 57 days scorching around the planet on a giant trimaran, well, it's just a warm down, isn't it? Or have I got that wrong?
It was active recovery. That's what I like to call it, yeah. It was lovely to be out in the Caribbean, have that sunshine and the perfect sailing conditions.
Right, yeah. Tell me, let's start off with, we'll come to what you were sailing in a bit. It was a little bit different, this Caribbean 600, wasn't it, to the norm? Tell us about why it was different.
Totally different weather-wise, and the big picture with the weather was there was a big storm on the east coast of America. We saw the news reports of all the snowfall in New York and stuff. So that was sucking up all the action, and there was a big light area of no wind off to the east. So the normal trade winds that are normally between 85 and 95 true wind direction were being really rotated to the right, and it was more 130 true wind direction. And that then changes the setup for each leg of the Caribbean 600 compared to what we're used to. So some of the reaching legs now were more upwind, and there were some changes then. The downwind legs became more reachy. And so everybody had to kind of shift a little bit on what they thought was coming up.
Right.
And it was interesting because there's a lot of conversations of whether the Caribbean 600 should ever be tried in reverse. And we haven't done that yet. Like, shall we do it forwards or backwards, you know? But it wasn't a record-breaking year, but it was a really interesting race for all classes, the big boats right through to the little boats. There was a lot of activity.
So that first, I call it the first leg, but once you've got off the start line, you've gone round the bottom of Antigua, and then you've got that long leg, that long first leg that goes up there. That's normally a sort of tight reach, isn't it? It's normally so that was a much broader reach, I guess, by the sounds of it. That was, once we cleared Green Island off the corner of Antigua, that was spinnakers up all the way to Barbuda to round the mark. And then it was a jibe at the mark, and then that decision of whether it was a spinnaker or a code sail, more of a tight reach across to Nevis. So that changed those two legs straight away. For us, it's a reaching race, the Caribbean 600, and we lost our code sail on that first reaching leg. So then we had to be very clever and think outside the box, and we had to do that little magic where you go, okay, if we hold the kite for as high as we can, for as long as we can, when do we drop it so that we get the right angle with the jib to make it work? So we probably sailed more miles than we should have,
but we had to do it because we had a reduced sail wardrobe. But that's one of the tests of the race, really.
Yeah. And in terms of wind strength, I mean, typically it's 15, 25 knots, something like that. Trade winds, was it?
Yes, I mean, it was beautiful. It was 15 to 20 knots for most of the course, and then our last days. So obviously, you know, the mods finished in a day and a half, but we're there for 3 days. We saw 25 to a bit of 30 knots, just in some gusts and some squally activity, but generally it was perfect Caribbean weather that you would expect. And of course the wind shadow, the notorious wind shadow at Guadeloupe that shifted a few of the players.
Yeah, it shifted some of the players, but I guess that notorious wind shadow must have been in a slightly different place as well because of the different wind direction.
We came down that 140 miles from the top, all the St Bart's, all the way down to Guadeloupe is normally that reaching leg that's quite fast. That's when you get the rest. This was now on the breeze to clear Montserrat, where there's now an exclusion zone. And then we weren't freed up at all. And actually on our race, as we got closer to Guadeloupe, then the wind had rotated back round to more of a traditional direction. But of course, for the bigger boats that were ahead of us, they didn't have that. So having it more upwind, it was a bit later when the wind shadow came. So the transition was slightly shorter, but it was still there.
It was still there, right. Okay, let's talk about the line honours winners. So the fastest round were the the Mod 70s. I guess I'm sure you're enjoying yourself where you were, but you must have had half an eye on them going, I wouldn't mind being on that.
Absolutely. I mean, 2 years ago, 2024, we were on a Mod 70 on Limosa racing with them, and we finished 6 hours behind them. But we always know that Argo and Zoulou have this massive battle. For Zoulou this time, they'd been chartered by Final, the team from there. So they had 4 people that hadn't really sailed a Mod 70 that much before, with 4 or 5 people that knew what they were doing. So that was a new crew to put together. They'd literally only done a couple of days training in the Caribbean Antigua 360 as a warm-up. And Argo led the fleet, as you would expect, and they were leading Zoulou round. They got to Guadeloupe first, and Zoulou came inside them and overtook them. And it was like, Zulu's taken the lead, you know, it was like, wow. And then literally the 2 boats were matched, 28 knots, 29 knots, 30 knots, 31 knots, side by side. Wow. And then from Redonda to the finish is that upwind finish. And allegedly, talking to the guys, it was a dummy tack by Argo, and they could pull it off because they had a very experienced crew that actually got rid of Zoulou and allowed them to cross the line just 4 minutes ahead of them.
Wow.
I mean, that's just a phenomenal race. Yeah. And, you know, as we come to expect with those 2 boats, there's nothing over until the line's crossed kind of thing.
And that was 600 miles, day and a half, tick, done.
Done, yeah, that's right, with some great racing for both boats. Amazing. Which is fantastic.
Yeah. Hello, now look, sorry to interrupt, I'll be very quick, but just a little message, just a reminder to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, which means that you get notified each time we put up a new story. I know you hear this a lot if you watch YouTube a fair bit, everybody's always asking it, but the reason is that it makes a big difference. It influences YouTube's algorithm, it means we can do an awful lot more with the show, and I'd really appreciate you doing it. If you have done already, thanks very much. I know there's over 90,000 of you that have done so thanks very much. If you haven't, just go on there, click it. You won't get spammed, you're not on any email list, it just helps our algorithm. Thanks a lot. Okay, let's get back to it. Behind them, but only just behind them by a few hours, were the big maxis, weren't they? Tell us about those.
Yeah, well, Super Zero had their own battle, and it was Blackjack 100 taking on Leopard. And it was interesting. Blackjack's a very different boat. You know, they reef early, they don't have the same systems. Leopard actually looked at the weather and was just like, do you know what? Let's not confuse the sail wardrobe. Let's take less sails and make it very clear what sail we're on. And it was really interesting for that change of dynamic. It was Blackjack that took the line honours, and they were just 30 minutes ahead of Leopard. And again, they had a tussle at Guadeloupe. The lead changed and they fought their way through. But it was Leopard that took IRC overall. So, you know, in that case, both were winners. Balthazar actually took the leeward side of Montserrat, which is not very often seen. And they were doing a really good race, and then they dropped the rig. Well, they didn't drop the rig, but they broke the top of the rig, literally just above the deflectors. The top section broke as they rounded Redonda, and that was them out of the race. Just that 34 miles from the finish line.
Oh my goodness.
So they're doing very speedy repairs. They can be ready for the North Sound Regatta.
Right, yeah. Incredible. I mean, amazing performance by Leopard, isn't it? I mean, that's getting on a bit, that boat. That's been around a while. I know it's been reconfigured, isn't it? It's had a big refit again.
Yeah, and it was interesting. They've done a lot of work on the boat, but they've also got consistency with the team. They've kept the same people together, therefore the confidence on the boat and the people is there. And the owners were saying, you know, everything's about the team. And they've put it all together and they've shown it makes it work. There's life in the old dog yet.
Yeah, well, it's incredible, absolutely incredible and great to see. And so what about, so that was Super Zero. So what about IRC1?
So that was those guys, and then that was Super Zero. Zero, it was Palanad, the French Mach 50
the scow.
that took the lead. Yeah, I mean it's an IRC weapon. I mean
Really?
it's generally winning everything. Will Harris was on board racing with them, and he just said it's just so much fun to sail.
Really?
It's that hybrid between an IMOCA and a Class 40 put in a 50-foot boat.
Wow.
That performs really well on a reaching course, and the Caribbean 600 really played into that.
Yeah. Do you think, because they really came to quite a few people's attention in the transatlantic race, didn't they? Because they ripped across there. Do you get the sense that this configuration is going to make its way into sort of offshore sailing quite quickly? Are we going to see a lot more scows coming out as a result, do you think?
Well, I think if you think of where it came from, like the first Mini with the David Raison design, that was a scow, and it looked like a bathtub, and everyone's like, no. And it was proof of concept. And then we've seen it come into the Class 40s, we've seen it now in the IMOCAs, and now we're seeing it in IRC boats. You know, I think it's the way it's shaped to ride the waves and to accelerate. It makes it look easy.
The thing that
kind of easy miles.
Yeah, the thing that seems to be the game changer in a way, or at least complete the final part of the jigsaw, I guess, for the scale configurations, they've made them go upwind, which they never used to be able to do, or not very effectively.
Yeah, and this race has that, you know, element of upwind as well, where obviously they're not going to shine, but they can hang on to the competition, and that's the difference. If you can stay with everybody, then when it's your time to stretch your legs, it's easy to get away. Yeah. And I think Palanad really showed that. And it was Ran that came second and Eno Noir that came third.
Right.
So they would have been a bit frustrated by that. But it was good to see, you know, nice to see. And then IRC1 was where I was playing on the Swan 58 on Wave Walker.
About that.
So we'd done the whole warm-up of the Nelson's Cup with the Windward Lures coastal courses and then the Antigua 360. And we'd come second in that, but our nemesis was Ricky, which is more of a race boat, American.
The Pew, isn't it?
That's right, and it's a bit more stripped out. We're a cruising boat, we're a heavy boat. We needed certain conditions, and when we had those conditions, we were great. But you know, when we got to the reaching and we had to do our clever spinnaker for a while, head sail for a while, because we missed our reaching sail, we lost out a little bit there. But we came third, we came on the podium, but it was only 6 hours that separated the top 6 boats.
Wow.
So, in fact, we didn't really know whether we were holding on to third when we finished until some of the other boats had finished because of the IRC rating. And there were some boats that had some really good races. So that was really interesting. But I think the standout performance, I think, of the whole race was, because it wasn't without its dramas, the 42-foot catamaran in the multi-hull class, Cata Sensation, actually capsized. So 6 crew on board, they'd rounded Barbuda for the second time, they're heading across to Redonda, and that was a reach. And, you know, I wasn't there, I don't know, but it was quite gusty and squally that day, and it happened just ahead of us. And whether they were too fixed on the course and didn't bear away in that acceleration and flipped, I don't know what caused it, but it was a Class 40 that came behind them that rescued the crew. So 3 people on the Class 40, Solano, they rescued the 6 crew members, carried on and completed the race and won.
Oh, really?
And won the Class 40, yeah. So it goes to show that you can still do your seamanship bit and not cost you the race.
Well, that's good.
But so they got the standout award really for seamanship, if nothing else.
Yeah, amazing. It sounds from what you're saying that this will go down as one of the most competitive Caribbean 600s.
It certainly felt that way. I mean, it's a 17th edition and there's always some tussle or some exciting news, but with that slight wind shift, just changing the format a little bit. But there really was really close racing in every class, and you know, their own little dramas unfolding. And it's always the same. You round Redonda, and that last 34 miles, it's a 34-mile beat, but it's just the longest beat ever.
Yes.
To get to that finish line, you're like, oh. And we literally had all our crew sat on the rail. You know, it was like, we got to give it everything. And we only got third place by 10 minutes. So it literally was everybody being up from 6 in the morning to sit on that rail and tack upwind all the way to the finish. It's
a funny race, isn't it? I've only done it once, but I really enjoyed it. But what really struck me about it is you sort of go into it thinking, fantastic, 600-mile offshore race, sunshine, t-shirt, shorts, great. be really easy, steady breeze, and it's not. It's really not easy at all.
It's really hard. It's really technical, and as a navigator, it's really busy because every time you think you've got a bit of respite, there's some land or a question or a shift, or you've got to deal with, the prevailing winds and the shadows of what next island. There's always an island coming up. You've always got a bit of land to deal with. And every time you think you're going to get your sleeping bits, you're on the edge of a sail or something, and there's an imminent sail change, so you're up anyway. So, yeah, it's a hard race, but I think that's why it's attractive. It's something that's enjoyable because it's sunshine, 20 knots, but it's quite technical and a bit demanding.
Yeah, I joked at the start about you having a bit of a warm down, but I mean, what was it like? Because you went pretty much straight from going around the world into that.
Yeah, I mean, it was lovely. We get really well looked after with the team, and the Nelson's Cup and the Antigua 360. It was just fun to be, warm weather sailing with a different group of people. But actually, I think it was quite funny. And I said to Annemiek at the time, because we were both on the crew, and I said, I think we may be more tired from the 600 than we thought. And yeah, I certainly slept well that first night.
Really? Yeah. Well, good to have you back. One last thing. What are you doing next?
I promised I'd stay at home for the month of March. That hasn't quite delivered. Yeah, it hasn't quite delivered yet. But I am, kind of rest and recovery and routine. I think it's getting back into training and sleeping and eating and that kind of thing, because I'll be back racing in April, Palma Vela on the Wally Cento on Tillicana.
Right, lovely. Great stuff. Well, as I say, lovely to have you back. Keep us informed on what's going on. I know you will, and I know where you live, so
you can find me.
I can find you. Lovely, thanks. The biggest challenge of some of the world's top offshore races isn't always the course, but simply getting there. In the maxi world, this is especially true. Lifting big boats onto a ship's deck is a skilled operation, especially when it involves tandem cranes. And while the stowing procedure has been meticulously planned to the centimetre, it's not just about the boats either. Big teams bring plenty of kit with them too. Ribs, sails, cradles, spare masts and containers. Going on tour is a big logistical operation for all. Shipping from the Mediterranean, be it Genoa or Palma de Mallorca, offers significant benefits to the teams as boats arrive at the venue in perfect condition, ready to race. From here, their campaigns include a string of events, from the Nelson's Cup, the Caribbean 600, the Bart's Bucket and the North Sound Regatta in the BVI. And while they'll be going head-to-head on the water, for the crucial delivery, they travel side by side. The new Balance 502 has been launched and replaces the popular 482. And while she's a good-looking cat, there's little doubt that she's got big boots to fill. Naturally, Balance cats are confident that she will. Built in carbon, she's a performance cruiser that is lighter, quicker, easier to handle and, most importantly, versatile when it comes to the overall spec. Because building light and robust means that those that are looking for performance start from an efficient lightweight platform. Alternatively, those looking for a luxurious blue water cruising configuration have plenty of scope to include the systems they want without putting on excess weight. Plus, the weight savings allow the option of the VersaDrive hybrid system, which can easily accommodate the additional weight of an expanded lithium-ion battery bank with little performance penalty. All of which adds up to a cruiser that'll ghost upwind at 6 knots in just 10 knots of wind, and power reach at over 20 knots in 25. And when it comes to her fit-out, the images alone speak for themselves. Spread across 220,000 square metres and 6 days, the Genoa International Boat Show is one of the largest marine industry events on the global stage. Now preparing for its 66th edition, the event provides a global showcase for an incredibly wide range of the yachting scene. With over 1,000 boats and superyachts on display to the latest innovations and technology, along with equipment and services, this show is huge. The newly redesigned waterfront provides quick and easy access to open waters for sea trials, which reached over 4,000 last year. The world-renowned Design Innovation Awards, along with 132 seminars, conferences and workshops, ensured that there was truly something for everyone. So, with all of this in mind, it's easy to see why over 124,000 visitors chose to experience last year's edition.